Hey everyone, I'm Acidus. Thank you. Um, I'm talking today about spy software in general. I will be open and frank. I was writing this a while because I thought about going to DEF CON, and I've kind of put the project on hold. I haven't touched it in several months. But I opened it up yesterday and it still worked. I'm working on some other projects. I wanted to pimp those for a second. I'm the founder and main developer of a program called Snoop. It was on Slashdot a few months back. That does all sorts of like magstripe reading and almost writing. The alpha right now, I've got kind of a primitive writer working. So that's a cool thing. You guys should check it out. That's stripesnoop.sourceforge.net. You guys also have probably seen me talk about Spectorsoft. In fact, the last time I ever talked about Spectorsoft was at Interzone 2. And, well, I kind of got sued at Interzone 2, and my speech went like crap. Because I got served like 15 minutes before I was supposed to give my Spectorsoft talk. And I was totally frazzled. The slides like were dying. My program core dumped. Nothing worked. Needless to say, I've done actually a good bit of work since Interzone 2 on this. So you guys should like it. We're going to do a demo. There's a SourceForge project that does all this stuff. I also tend to talk a lot, so shout out your questions at me. I don't care. Sound good? Good? I'd like it a live audience, too, though. Come on. Good? All right, excellent. Great.
Why do you have the wrong date?
Is it not the 22nd?
It is, but it's not August. It's not August.
Oh, my God. No, I didn't. Just pretend that's a 10. Okay, so I'm going to start out with a nice legal disclaimer. Spectre is a trademark of Spectorsoft, and there is no affiliation between myself, Most Significant Bit Labs, which is kind of a pseudo LLC company I've started to do all sorts of crazy stuff. Actually, Snoop has been licensed by a couple of people who make point-of-sale devices, so I'm making money. You can make money in open source software. Please note that this is all as is. Don't do this. This is purely for information purposes only, and everything done preparing for this and all the reverse engineering I did was for the sole purpose of writing interoperable software, so please don't send the DMCA Nazis after me. Okay, I'm going to give a quick interview over spy software in general, what the history is, and how it's just getting nastier. We're going to talk about the number one I'm already getting tongue-tied. The number one selling piece of spy software in the world is something called Spectre. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to show how much of a bastard it is, how hard it is to find it, detect it, and destroy it. We're going to show how to disable it. I'm going to show you a demo of Spectorsoft working. Then I'm going to explain how Spectre actually does what it does, how it stores the information. We're going to talk about the header, the index, the data entries. We're going to show some advanced techniques. And then I'm going to show you the software that reverse engineers Spectre. Okay, so let's get this ball rolling. What is spy monitoring software? Okay, well, this is basically software that collects some type of personal information. Some states require that the user is notified. A lot of times, so you know, if you're on hold, I was having to pay my wireless bill yesterday, which, by the way, AT&T sucks. Anyway, thank you. You get those calls that say, this call is, maybe recorded for monitoring purposes. Okay, yeah, they can train telemarketers to be even bigger pricks, whatever. It's the same thing. Some laws will require that if monitoring software is installed on a piece of on a machine, that a little notice pops up and says, "Hey, you're being monitored." Some states don't. Georgia does not. I worked at a company while I was co-op, and they used Spectorsoft, and I kind of stumbled upon it, and then I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." So, like I said, this is just software that sits there, captures personal information. Normally, it is screenshots, key logs. They've gotten substantially more advanced in the last year. They can grab your pop messages going in and out. They grab instant messages, and there's a lot more reporting capabilities. Before, it was simply grab the screen, grab the keyboard, and let's dump it to a file and report it. It has much more advanced reporting capabilities. It will, actually give you a history of all your AIM conversations, give you kind of nice little trees showing everything. It's pretty scary. There are several examples of spy software. Commercialized, you've got Spectre, which is made by Spectorsoft. You have eBlaster, which is kind of a light version of Spectre. It's also made by them. Spy Agent, there are lots of others. Then there are kind of hackers. Sub7 is a server, is a Trojan, but it does basically what spy software does. NetBus. NetBus is a nasty one, and it's very interesting. Spectre is actually NetBus. the versions 1.0 through versions 3 of Spectre is actually NetBus with some extra stuff on it. There's a company selling you a Trojan, and they're making money off of it. If I had written NetBus, I would have been really pissed. Though I guess, I mean, if you're infecting someone with NetBus, I guess you kind of have to license that under the GPL, because, you know, hey, here's the source code, and here's what you just got screwed with. Okay, so what is Spectre? It's the #1 spy monitoring software in the world. Originally started as a NetBus Trojan, like I said, and unfortunately current events have just rapidly caused its adoption. I first got interested in Spectre, like I said, I found it at my co-op office, but I was watching 2020. It was like in fall of 2002, so right a long time ago, I guess. In fact, I came up and talked at Phreaknic 6, first time I actually came up to Nashville then. And it was essentially a 2020 story. They might as well have just called it Protect Your Children, because that's what it all was about. It was about, like, oh, let's put GPS monitoring stuff in our kids' cars to make sure they're not speeding. And, you know, here's how to enable the V-chip on all of your televisions. And we need to monitor their use on the internet because God knows they're talking to pedophiles while making a nuclear bomb. You know, that's what they're trying to do. It was crazy. It was totally trying to play on people's fears. And unfortunately, it's worked. I mean, Benjamin Franklin has a really good quote that says, people who are willing to sacrifice privacy for security deserve neither privacy nor security. And unfortunately, the current trend in our country is, you know, protect me, I will give you anything you want if you just make me feel safe. And Spectre has a real nice gig because they make you feel safe and they get $50 out of it. Yeah, doesn't it? So, okay, Spectre's features. This is actually, I have to confess, it's a nifty-ass program. I mean, I completely hate it, but I can admire the skill involved. It's kind of like with virus writers. I mean, I don't like viruses, but I have to admire. It's pretty cool to be able to own a Windows box in 2K of code. Okay, so it has God's own stealth. This thing is really, really, really damn hard to detect. It has passworded access to it, so even when you do detect it, you have to crack a password to even get at the stuff. Takes screenshots, it captures P2P transactions, it keeps a nice log of all the files you're trading on Fast Track, all the major P2P networks. It doesn't do BitTorrent yet. What programs you're using, keeps a list of what programs were run and for how long, and whether they had focus. Keystrokes, URLs, email, not only pop, but it'll also be able to tell that you're using like Hotmail or Yahoo, and it'll stick those into its nice little email thing. Has a really nice front end too. In fact, let's take a look at it. This is what it looks like. It's got these nice little fun tabs where you click email, and you can get a big list and summary. I mean, it almost looks like a mail client. It gives you a list of websites. It'll actually give you a preview of what that site was looking at the time. Chat, AIM, keystrokes, programs, peer-to-peer, and snapshots. It's neat. It actually runs the screen captures it takes, kind of like a primitive movie. So, like I said, it has God's own stealth. I had a bitch of a time trying to figure out this thing when it was running in stealth. You know, look at add remove programs, it's not there. I mean, you have to try the obvious stuff. Do Control-Alt-Delete, look in the process tree. I mean, granted, you're not going to see it in, you know, programs, but you figure, yeah, I can find the process. No, it's not in processes either. Try to do process viewers to find cloaked processes. Not there. It's tricky. It actually is mainly implemented by 2 DLLs, and they hook Explorer.exe right when the machine boots. And so all of your programs are now, pretty much it grabs Explorer.exe, and then every process Explorer spawns also gets hooked. So, I'm sorry? Yeah, you can. In fact, list DLLs gives you a really good idea of which programs are hooking it, and it tells you what functions inside it are being called, which was a nice way to reverse engineer it. Okay, so detecting it, here are the obvious signs. You can run it in stealth mode or not stealth mode. If it's not running in stealth mode, it's pretty damn easy. You know, if you see a shortcut on your desktop that says Spectre, with the guy, you know, with the glasses who's watching you, that's a pretty good indication you're being watched. This nifty little red square, which I'm like, why the hell is this a red square? And they're like, in their nice little help manual, they're just like, oh, the red square is to remind you of, you know, a VCR recording. I'm like, I guess it does kind of look like a VCR recording. And also, if you see Spectre actually in your start menu, that also is an indication that you are being monitored. Okay, so let's try detecting this in stealth mode. It was interesting when I was doing an install. I was using an older version here, Spectre 2.2, I was able to find the things that actually installed by just doing a directory dump before and after the install, figure out what changed. So it added some entries. Here are two nasty DLLs, net kernel and net kernel HM, which is the hardware manager. It's got some help files. This is the front end that gets launched. And then this WebE bot, I haven't been able to figure out what it is yet. I think it's just a helper module. I haven't really been looking at 2.2. This is, like I said, an older version. Okay, so detecting in stealth mode. List DLLs, which you can get from System Internals. I think it's systeminternals.com. They have a lot of great programs. I highly, highly recommend them. They've got a nice little thing that'll let you run list DLLs and see what things have hooked what programs. And here you can very cleanly see in Explorer exe that net NL DLL and HM DLL. Those are the two that Spectre uses. Okay, so here's another great thing. I started thinking, wait a minute, so Spectorsoft, let's assume it's capturing, if it's doing screen captures, it's got to write these to disks. You can actually, inside Spectorsoft, set the interval. So an interesting side channel is you can just pop open a system manager and say, okay, let me watch the disk access. If you're not running anything and you've pretty much removed everything, they're not doing SETI at home or something, it's very plain to see every 5 seconds there's this nice little peak. And in fact, if you can see on there, it says 12K. I was running this, I think, at 1024 by 768 at like 16-bit color depth. And if you take a screenshot of that and use and make it a ping file, because they actually use zlib, I'll talk about that in a second, for compression, it's exactly that size. So they're basically just writing ping images to disk every 5 seconds. There actually is a phone home correspondent part of it. It appears to be just for product registration and making sure that keys aren't floating around. By the way, I did all of this with a demo. It was the demoed version, and I'm sticking with that. So a fun way to disable this, if you're using an older 98 machine, you can use msconfig or the registry editor. Here in msconfig, you can see WebEbot. Like I said, that was the loader, the helper function, which kind of loads the GUI up. You can see that. That also is what gives you, down here in the taskbar, your nice little thing. This is, in fact, Linux. I know it kind of looks like XP, but I don't suck, I promise. Okay. And then also right in here in, I don't really want to read this registry key because they are long, but basically in current version run, so you can see what's starting, you can see this nice little entry for it to boot. So yeah, hack your registry. That's always fun. Any questions so far? Are you guys alive? Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, you better believe they're greasing some palms. Yeah, I mean it. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, do antivirus companies, how come they're not detecting it if its core was originally the Atlas Trojan, even though now it's some type of commercial product? I imagine during the time Spectre was paying them. I mean, you guys have to understand, the spy software, I checked, they had like revenues of, it was like, I don't remember if it was gross or net. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. This space is huge. And it's only getting bigger. In fact, the big kind of plights that are happening now are adware and spyware are the big things. I mean, viruses, we have kind of a reactionary attack to them. Windows patches them eventually, and you update your definitions. So we have a way to kind of deal with them. We don't really have a way to deal with spy software and adware. We're still trying to cope with that. Yes? It could be. I mean, if your product is based on a virus and you're making money off it, you're going to pay the people who try to find the viruses to not find your product. Especially because this thing, granted, there's a little notice that will say, hi, I am you're being monitored. But these guys get by with it being stealth. The whole way these programs work, the whole way they make money is they're able to tell employers, hey, you can keep your employees in line by, making them think Big Brother is always watching them. I'll go off on a little side channel because I got a little bit of time here. This whole idea pisses me off. And that was the main reason why. I tend to get involved with things that piss me off. Blackboard, they pissed me off. And they screwed me, but they pissed me off. Spectorsoft pisses me off because they market this as it's kind of this, I don't want to go off on a rant here, Dennis Miller style, but so like the complete trend in American parenting is it's not my fucking problem. Someone else is going to raise my kids. I'm not going to teach my kids to not go to the R-rated movie. It's the movie theater's job to make sure my kid doesn't go to the R-rated movie. It's not my responsibility to teach my kid that, taking a shotgun to a school and shooting people is wrong. It's Doom's fault. It's these people's fault. Orrin fucking Hatch, wants to, have... Fuck Orrin Hatch. That was the best part of your speech, by the way. Fuck Orrin Hatch. It's completely wrong. And this entire company that is saying, keep your, children in line, monitor them. I'd say, why don't you fucking get away from your damn career and sit down with your kids for a half an hour a day, and they're not going to be doing the shit that this company's telling you they're trying to prevent. So these guys piss me off. So that's basically why I decided, I want to find a way to make their products completely ineffective. And the way you make it ineffective is you let people know they're being monitored. You give them tools so they can detect it. Then you let them corrupt what's being monitored. Meaning, if you can, at the end of the day, look at a big record of what all your employees did, but I totally have access to change that database too, it's worthless. Because when you look at my computer, you're going to see I was browsing the ACLU website all day. Now, that wasn't what I was doing, but that's what you're going to see. So my whole goal is to basically make them ineffective. And so, all right. Any other questions? Yes. Okay. Okay. I don't know. I mean, they are... Okay, so he was asking, eBlaster just came out with a new version, and it's supposed to be harder to detect, and, is it more virus-like, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, they've pretty much gone legit now. The core, doing a nice strings on their early versions versus their later versions, it's pretty easy to tell. They pretty much abandoned most of their original NetBus core. I'm looking at my time, and I only have about 40 minutes left, and I do have a lot to cover, so I'm going to try to, whip through. If you've got something really important, feel free to shout out. Okay. I was going to do the demonstration of Spectorsoft, except for I'm in Linux, and I don't really want to take the time to pop into Windows, but I'll tell you what I'll do. Let me pop up here, and I'll show you this GUI and give you kind of a little better idea of what exactly it is that they're doing. Like I said, you have to excuse me. I have an old, slow laptop. Spectre is really simple. The program basically sits down in your taskbar, whatever. It hooks Explore. Every time you do something, it records it. Now, it records it into these special type of files called SPT files, which is for Spectre. And it has some interesting information. So I kind of thought of as a thought experiment, what type of information has to go into these things? Because, remember, the first step is being able to read them. We want to see what was recorded. And also disable Spectre, which we talked about. Actually, I'm going to change my mind and just go down and start talking more about the SPT files. So these SPT files are really kind of having Spectre by the balls, so to speak. I mean, if you can corrupt these things, you completely destroy their product, because an employee, if they can't trust what Spectre is reporting to them, they're not going to pay the assload of money to Spectre to do the thing. Okay, demonstration. I'm not going to do a demo. If you guys would like to see a demo, come see me afterwards. I recently reloaded this laptop, and so I have to reinstall it, and it'll be a giant pain in the butt. Okay, so leveling the playing field. They seem to have a lot of balls in their court. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not against corporations trying to keep their employees honest. When I was co-op, there was a guy who was like 2 cubicles over me named Bill Colt, and he used to play StarCraft all day. In fact, the other co-ops and I had a little game which was give Bill a heart attack, in which case, we would sneak up kind of towards his cube, And so they'd just be like, "Oh, hey, Jim, Reed, how you doing?" Which was our boss's name, and you would frantically hear Bill alt-tabbing and, like, straightening up and, pretending that he wasn't playing StarCraft. Bill should have been fired, and he was fired because, well, they found lots of porn on his computer, but that's another story for another day. So I just want to clear the record. I'm not against corporations keeping employees honest. I just think the way Spectre is trying to market their product and the way they're pretty much preying on people's fears is very wrong. Okay, so the SPT files store all the captured content, everything. They use compression to reduce the size. They hold the basic information about the captured content, such as its type and duration and things like that. So a Spectre or SPT file consists of a couple of things. You've got a header in red. This is a fixed length. It gives you some information about how many different types of captured items there are in the file. And by a captured item, I'm meaning a screenshot or a application name or a little bit of text or an email. Like I said, it has a magic number, start and stop time, the location of the index. Now this is interesting. The index is in purple, and it's an index of X number of entries describing the data, what type of data it is, and where it's stored. So if you can, then you have X data blocks, and each one of these are compressed with the deflate compression algorithm. This is, if you guys have ever heard of zlib, it's what gzip uses. It's a free open implementation. It's actually, excellent compression algorithm. And it's lossless, which is great, and which is exactly why they use it. So each one of these blue things represents a hunk of data. And so here's some static data, and inside this there's a pointer that says, hey, here's where the index is. And then the index consists of a number of fixed entries. I believe they're 36 bytes that contain, hey, here's some information about it, and here's a pointer back to where in the file each one is. Now, if you think about the way Spectorsoft works, this makes sense, because you basically start the program, in which case you have some certain type of information such as the start time, some other information, and basically every 5 seconds or so, whatever, you're doing a capture, compressing it, and just appending it to the file. So blue, 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 blue. And then when Spectre actually, we'll talk about how to force Spectre to actually write this to the disk. When it does that, it just tallies everything it's already written, makes this nice little index, writes it, and then updates the table in the header. Make sense? It's pretty good. Okay. Oh, wow, I think I just did it. So header is created when the recording starts. It's lightly populated. Each new capture is appended to the file, and the index in memory is updated. When recording stops, the header is completed, and the index is written, and the index and the header and everything is all written to disk. Okay, so content is saved to one SPT file until Spectre stops, you unload it, or you change the screen dimensions. That's interesting. So up in this red thing, they actually kind of keep, hey, here are what the screen dimensions are, and here's the color depth. That helps Spectre malloc memory ahead of time for each one of these buffers. So if you actually change the screen resolutions, you force it to write one of these files to disk. So, for example, if you're being monitored at work and you know it and you want to change it before you leave it the day, you change your resolution, your screen resolution, and you force the SPT file to be written to disk, and now you can modify the SPT file to have whatever you want in it. So multiple SPT files are in this one secret directory, and they have a field inside the header that kind of lets it know what the order is. So if you've got 5 SPT files, they kind of keep track and let you kind of have one giant capture file. Okay, so this is a quick example of what the header looks like. The header holds a magic number, which kind of identifies it. Hey, this is an SPT file. Holds the screen dimensions, the start and stop times, as well as information about the location and size of the index. So right here, this is the magic number, which translates to ZZTA. And then the SPT file number at offset of 10. This right here says 1, so this is the first file of the larger SPT capture. So that's spanned over multiple files. Okay, so we've got start time and stop time, which are there. These are recorded in 32-bit CTime, so you can use the C.H or ctime.h library to just read them. Real simple. In this particular instance, I started in February 19th, 2004, and ended a little later, 3 minutes later. Okay, and then here we see our screen dimensions, which are 1024 by 768, and those are at offsets 54 and 58 hex. And then, here, now we're getting to the good stuff. This basically tells you all the way at the end of the file, this is where the index is. So location of the index, and it's extremely important because it points you to the index, which then tells you how to parse the rest of the file. There's some other fun information here. Tells you the number of indexes, tells you the compressed size of the index, and the size of the uncompressed index. And again, this is just for performance reasons. They're having to do a lot of this really fast, and they don't want the user to be aware that Spectre is even running. So they have to do a lot of, hey, let me tell you ahead of time what the size will be so you can malloc it. Because they try to do as much in memory as they can. Anyone have any questions so far? Excellent. Okay, so header info points us down to the index, and this is compressed. This is the first part of it that is actually compressed. And it contains X number of 32-byte entries describing the size, location, and type of all captured content. Okay, so this is what one of them looks like. It's nasty, but these 36 bytes tell us everything we need to know to reconstruct the content. It even has this really neat caching feature, which I'll tell you about. So let's go ahead and try to figure out what this is. That is what it ends up looking like when you... So this right here, 36 bytes, ends up translating to one of these. This is a giant SBT file. It's about a meg long, has something like 3 minutes worth of screenshots, yet it's only a meg. So that gives you a good idea how good their compression is. This just tells you the time, date stamp, tells you the location inside the file where it is. I'll get into what the types mean, but this just identifies this as parts of a picture. Tells you the compressed length, the actual length, which piece of the picture it is. I'll get into that in a second. And also hash, which is really cool. I'll get into that in a second, too. So these indexes point back to the data. They basically can, and then these things themselves actually aren't just raw data. You won't directly be pointing to, random text from an email conversation. It actually points to something that has a very small header. Actually, I'm sorry, each one of these blocks is compressed. When you uncompress them, you get some type of header. It's a very simple header. For example, if you had, if one of these was a part of a screen. Here's my advanced features. So if one of those was part of a screen, let's go back one more. So if one of these was part of a screen, like this one is, it says pieces. When you actually go to that part of the file and decrypt it, the header will be something very simple to say, hey, here's the X component, here's the Y component, and here are the dimensions of this little part. Spectre actually divides pictures up into little pieces, as you see right here. Spectre kind of took one out of the MPEG playbook. MPEG is the motion picture experts group, whatever. They do all sorts of codes, or all sorts of standards, etc. But MPEG, one of the ways it works is it's not let's take each frame and try to compress it. It's let's take each frame, divide it into a grid, and only save what changes. Spectre does the same thing. They divide the screen into 16 pieces, and they say, oh, only this part changed. Or as I'm, let's say I'm typing in my address bar, only these two things are saved, or only these two things are changing. So it's only compressing and writing those to disk. At the front of those blue entries, when I was talking about like X and Y, so like this one would say, oh, the X and X is 0. This is like 1024, so that divided by 4, that's what this length is, and this. And so this one, would be at a different XY coordinate. So it's how it reconstructs the screen. So that's neat. It actually drastically, regular people just browsing desktops or working on Word documents, you get a huge reduction in the amount of data you actually have to store and compress. So here's a nice nifty advanced feature. It's actually over here. They have a cache. So every element Spectre captures, it kind of keeps a running list. I haven't figured out what the hashing function is yet. You don't need to know what the hashing function is. You can give it a file without any hashes. It'll still work okay. But basically, it runs it through some type of hashing function, and it generates a 32-bit hash. And then, if Spectre is compressing another piece of captured data, it looks to see if the hashes are the same. If so, it says, you know what, there's no point in me trying to write this to disk. I will just simply write a pointer to the previous one. And that's exactly what this is doing here. This is the hash, and then these are picture pieces. And this is saying, you know what, this little x1 signifies a flag, meaning the number that follows is not, in fact, a hash value. It is a pointer to the previous piece you captured. So this is saying go to, 1F, the 1F piece that you compressed, and you're going to use that here instead. And in fact, if you look over here where it says, location, this and this, they kind of occupy the same location in the file. That's because they don't really reference a file. They actually say, you know what, go to this entry in the index, and that's what we're talking about. And then again, here we go ahead and resume with hashes again. So that also drastically reduces the amount of space, especially if you keep going to Google a lot. Google's my homepage. And so, wow, every time it does that, that's an entire image it doesn't have to store. So, any questions? Guys doing good? Okay. Let's do some demonstrations of this. So, my original plan was to, bust out into Windows and show you Spectre and capture some stuff, and then actually show you what it looked like. Unfortunately, I can't do that, but what I can do is show you a previous thing. So, we have some, so let me go here, SPT. All of this is available online at my website, which is www.yak.net/Acidus. And let me make sure this is the right place. Okay, great. So this here, you can't really see it. There's a mega SPT file right here, which has all those screen captures over 3 minutes that I was talking about. The program right here is actually a rather simple version of it. And basically what I'm going to do, go ahead. The mega file, actually this is a really interesting thing. So it is only 1.1 megs. So this will be interesting because you're going to see how freaking large it was. Okay, so we're going to run SPT, which is our SPT reader. I'm going to give it an input file of mega.spt. Okay, so goes ahead, pop some stuff up here. It says file to read, finds the signature, gathering information, found the screen resolutions, found where the index was located at, tells you there are 381 pieces of captured data. Now, that sounds like a lot, but keep in mind, every single screen capture is 16 pieces, if it's not referencing previous pieces. Goes ahead and says compressed length, found the uncompressed length, calling decode. So it gives us a nice summary. This particular picture, or this particular file contained 42 captures, has 7 application names, 35 screenshots, no key logs. And then it went through, like I said, slow laptop, but it finished decompressing everything. So let's actually look at what that was. It gives me a nice little output directory. And damn, we've got a lot of bitmaps that we exported to. There's also some things over here that would show keylog. There aren't any keylogs, so this is actually a blank file. I'll show you this parsed index that I was talking about. The code is heavily commented. I highly encourage people to do this. Like I said, I'm a college student. I'm graduating in the spring. And so my time has been kind of divided between school and Stripe Snoop recently. I haven't been able to work on this as much as I'd like. So I totally want help on this. Like I said, I've got the reader working. And the thing that actually lets you modify and inject, you can actually write your own SPT files. And Spectre parses those suckers right away. And so I actually have gotten it. So I can load an SPT file in, and you'll see me browsing the ACLU website. What I'd like to do is kind of selective editing, where you can say, here's what an SPT file is. I want to inject into here. This is what the output looks like. This is what you saw before. And here's some nice little divides. It says capture 1, capture 2, capture 3. This is really cool because it'll show you what I'm talking about with that MPEG stuff. So the first capture was a screenshot. We see that it is, that's what these little 1, 2, 1, 2, those signify screenshot. Tells us the compressed length. Now this is interesting. It shows us pieces 1 or 0 through F. Those were the 16 divisions of the screen we were talking about. Next capture, capture number 1. Oh, you'll also notice this is the time date stamp, 32-bit C-time value. Here you have a slightly different one than up here. Actually, I'm sorry, this because it's the application name that was using. This is actually the same. Here you'll see this is a different one. This was at E1B. This was at E51. So this was taken 30 seconds later. Here we see a picture. Here, because of the 1, 2, 1, 2, we also see this was a picture. However, this has 16 entries, and this only has 5 entries. And you'll also see pieces. It's only recording piece 0, 1, 2, 3, and C. So those are the only things that changed. I'll actually show you what those pictures were. I also need to design a better interface, because right now it spits out bitmaps, and Stank, you were asking me, how big that file was. Those bitmaps are gigantic. So, disk usage. 53 megs. 53 megs worth of bitmaps ejected from 1 meg worth of compressed Spectre. I told you, it's a damn nifty program. I have to admire the programming. And the funny thing is it's like they used open source against us twice. Hold on one second. They hacked the NetBus Trojan, and then they're using a free, GPL compression library to do it too. Yes. No, each one of these, I'm sorry, the question was, is there a hash on the overall application? No, there aren't. Each one of these capture files, each one of these little parts, you'll see right here, it'll say the hash. Each one of those has a hash. And so I think actually I can scroll down and show you where it goes. Excellent, right here. So, and I will actually go to the screenshots, and I'll let you see how the screens don't change. Here we got a capture number 12, so this is great because we can go look at bitmap number 12, and I can let you see how it referenced previous ones. We've got a full picture. All 16 pieces of the picture were captured, so it was a completely different screen looking than the previous one. However, I had done this before, meaning that the previous screenshot was not the same. However, many, many, many screenshots ago, parts of that original screenshot are in the new screenshot. So right here, right here, right here, and here, it just went ahead and wrote references to 1B, 1C, 1F, and 2.0. So it's referencing way back up here. Oh, this is... I used to have it where it would spit out next to here what number it is, but it's actually referencing some of these original ones. And I'll show you in the screenshot. I actually visit google.com twice, and so that's what it's referencing. Yes?
So what you're saying is, from a forensic standpoint, it wouldn't be admissible in a court of law because there was not an overall hash that defined the actual screenshots. I'm sorry.
I leave the legal stuff to the lawyers.
Well, basically what you're saying is that any of this information can be modified, changed, whatever.
Oh, yes. In fact, the entire point is I modify, change, and generally fuck the data up.
Good job.
Yes. Okay, so let's go ahead. All this stuff is dumped to the output directory, and I can regenerate this so you guys can actually see it spit these things out if you don't believe me. Ooh, that was loud. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go fit to window. It is fit to window. So let me minimize this so it's a little better. So here we see a screenshot of, this is a Win98 system. And here you see kind of a nice screenshot. You see Spectre running down here. I've got PGP, some other stuff. So Spectre's running, and the first screenshot it took, obviously, was the Spectre program that I had open. There's part of a screenshot, and you'll see sometimes Spectre will actually grab it while Windows is refreshing, so you'll get interesting artifacts like that from now and then. So here we see Google. Here's me browsing all sorts of stuff. There's Strick's website, which he helps me host, which is yak.net. Kind of browsing wrong. This one probably looks familiar. Back to Yak. That's it, trying to parse interzone 3s. Me doing stuff. I'm sorry. Well, we know we can hack this. We can inject Phreaknic stuff into this, see? So we see all of these, opening up Mozilla, back at Google. It's kind of drawing these lines because GQ view doesn't really want to render. I could go full screen, but then we kind of lose the names. So if I go back up here, I want people to be able to see that screens reference previous screens. Let's go back to this. This was Capture 0. So Capture 0 was a picture. So that was this picture that got captured, first of all. Then we went ahead. This was right here is an application. I think I actually spit out a list of application names. No, apparently not with this one. And then the picture I wanted to go to was, all right, so the second picture. This is a great example. Oh, that's not what I wanted to click. Okay, so you'll see right here how it shows the second picture. It actually captures only grabs 6 pictures, and those were 0, 1, 2, 3, and C. So 0, 1, 2, 3 is the top row, and C puts you about here. Okay, so here's our first picture with lots and lots of lines on it. Let me try to get clean. Okay. And then here's our second picture. And you'll see the only things that have changed are this stuff up here. And because of the way it draws the lines, we actually refreshed the entire top. And you'll also notice some artifacting here. It, in fact, did change this because it was starting to render the start menu. So there you get a good example about how it only does MPEG, does that kind of MPEG-like compression. Does anyone have any questions? I don't want to bore you all with technical details. Yes? Wait for the microphone. Oh, God, this is going to be loud.
Two questions. First question, if this is based on a Trojan, then couldn't the author of that Trojan or their assignee of copyright come after this company for damages due to the use of that Trojan without their authorization?
Possibly. I mean, I imagine if you... I think if you write a Trojan and then release it and then someone does something with it, I don't think you really want to admit that you wrote the original Trojan. Especially because, I mean, it's not like NetBus was back orifice where, you know, CDC actually said, hey, you can use this for admin tools. And I, in fact, know sysadmin tools who still use back orifice, mainly because they're cheap bastards. But NetBus was never, hey, this is a legitimate tool. I'm the one who wrote it. It was never like that.
Okay, next question. You said this uses the gzip compression library and it uses a GPL version of that. If this were using a GPL library, then wouldn't that make the finished product?
I misspoke. It uses the zlib compression librapry, which is used by gzip and other people. And that actually is not gzip, or excuse me, it is not GPL. It's under something called the zlib license, which is basically, here's a constant string, and as long as this constant string remains in the final binary, you can do whatever the hell you want to do with it. In fact, that's how I figured out they were using zlib. As I'm sitting there looking at the file, and I'm looking at the SPT file, and you'll see a lot of these 78.9c hex things at the beginning of and I kept seeing them all over the place, and I'm just like, these are way too regular, and they're all, and I ended up having to read lots of RFCs, but 78.9c is actually the header of a zlib, of a stream that has been compressed using zlib. And then later I stumbled upon this actual string of text which says deflate algorithm copyright some French guy 98 or 97. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And so that was fun. Any other questions? Yes. Wait for the mic. Oh man, this is slow. I will dance.
Two questions.
Shoot.
Is the company that develops Spectorsoft, is it still actively developing it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And secondly, have you received any legal threats?
No, I haven't. Hence that nice little legal disclaimer. This is written for interoperability only. I actually, so the name of the software, thank you. The name of the software that is up on SourceForge, and it's actually, I haven't moved it to SourceForge. I've been so busy with Stripe Snoop, but it's still on the yak.net site. It's called Phasmatus, which is Latin for Spectre. And I wrote it simply because if you do, in fact, legitimately use this software as a system admin, good Lord, why are you using a Windows box for, system adminning these things? I thought it would be neat for some type of... So let's say you're Delta, right? I'm from Atlanta, and Hartsfield, they have all these little fun kiosks. Let's say you wanted to see, for usability studies or whatever, you decide to record what people were doing on the kiosk. So you could see, what part of the UI people seem to scratch their heads at, not really understand. I mean, how many people who are going to catch a flight going to sit there and fill out a survey? So you just monitor what they do. I could see a legitimate use for Spectre of every night you just mount those drives with Samba, you pull the SPT files, and then you want to look at them. Basically, I want to try to get them into a form on a Unix box that you could use Unix-like tools. In fact, the latest version of Phasmatus has XML export. So it's like, screw that crazy SPT file, dump this to XML, and it's a lot easier to trade, a lot easier to modify. And I've also written something that'll take XML and put it back into SPT. so I kind of market it on the Phasmatus website as, hey, first of all, I hate the company, but if you have to use it, this at least lets you use it on different platforms. It's not proprietary. It's extendable, so if they change their file format, I mean, if I'm an administrator and I want to, there's no reason for me to pay assloads of money for something that's using zlib. You're decompressing images and showing them to me. I mean, you're photoshopped with some compression on you. Now, granted, it's got some interesting reporting capabilities, but I said, you know what? It would be nice if there was an open source tool that did this. And I hate the company. Any other questions? Oh, come on. My talk was that boring, or was I that, like, thorough? I can't tell. Thorough? Yes. Wait for the mic. See, I'll get it eventually, but I'm sorry.
And I don't have two questions. I have one.
Okay.
I just want to clarify, because I'm a little confused as far as the file size of that SBT file. As it goes on and on, I mean, are we talking about just the examples that you've given us for one, or does it somehow cut itself off and start writing to multiple files?
I imagine, well, it has the ability to say, whenever you stop Spectre, it goes ahead and writes that SBT file to disk.
So theoretically, if a kiosk was running for a week or even a month, you're talking about a gigantic file buildup?
Well, I have a feeling that Spectre probably has some internal cutoff that says if an FTP file has gotten more than, say, 20 megs, chop it. I mean, look, we pulled 53 megs of screen captures out of a 1 meg file. So imagine how incredibly ginormous that would be. And plus, I set the write to disk at every 3 seconds, not 30, I said earlier. So I was writing every 3 disk, and that was 3 minutes writing every second. It has inactivity timers. It has some stuff to help it kind of preserve disk space. When you close Spectre, writes the SBT file. When you change the screen size, writes the SBT file. And that's because in the header, it has the screen dimensions and the resolution. Interestingly enough, if you set Spectre to capture at, say, like 24 bits per pixel, but you change, and it's capturing, and then you change the pixel size down to be, say 8 bits per pixel, Spectre is actually still capturing at 24 bits per pixel, which I think is kind of inefficient. I mean, that's 3 times more than what you need. They should have done better than that. But, I mean, not like I can fault them. I mean, good Lord, the program is pretty damn cool. Especially if you're, in a database into structured program design file formats, which I've been doing a lot with Stripe Snoop recently. It's really impressive they managed to get so much data into one file. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, very much.
Okay, cool. All right, I think there's a guy over there that has one. Just another little thing. I'm going to be setting up a Coke machine. How many people here were at Interzone in Atlanta? Okay, good. But we like Phreaknic better. We like Phreaknic better. There was a Coke machine there that I built that has a vending swipe thing on it. I'm going to be setting that up maybe tonight, probably running all day tomorrow. It will be running and let you read what's on cards. It'll display it, and then it will also, if Stripe Snoop doesn't know what that type of card is, it should prompt you to say, hey, give me some information, and just take your time, please, and submit that. Check what you're submitting to me at Interzone. I had like 5 people's social security numbers from like student IDs and such, but I could use some help getting more information for that. You had a question.
Yeah, how do you reconcile, I mean, it seems like you've said that your motivating force in doing this is your dislike of Spectorsoft. How do you reconcile that with the possibility that what you're doing might actually turn into a tool to make it more useful and more productive in more environments?
Saying that on a website makes it a lot less likely for a judge to think I'm a punk-ass kid. As Decius told me a week ago, I was... So, Make Magazine... Oh, again, I have to pimp some stuff. Make Magazine is coming out. O'Reilly's doing a new do-it-yourself, and I have an article in there. It's like 10 pages long, all about Magstripe stuff. So please pick that up. Anyway, I was thinking of a real cool way to have, like... So all of you, I'm sure, have data that you wouldn't like to have, be exposed, let's say. So I was thinking about taking like an external hard drive, because USB drives are so cheap, and sticking some thermite on the top of it, and having a nice little USB chipset. I've been playing with those. So if you don't enter in a right key combination or something before you access the device, it destructs. And Tom, I'm actually going to do this. So Tom looked at me, and I guess his statement kind of also applies to my Phasmatus here. He just looks at me and goes, there is no legitimate use for this technology. So hopefully by, kind of saying, I mean, I don't like it, but it's GPL code. People can do with it what they want. And this is offering some things that you can do with it. I mean, the fact that Spectre is completely negating a growing part of how businesses run their infrastructure on Linux servers, this is an alternative they can use. I'm actually surprised they don't, considering how easy it was to port their software. Well, reverse engineer it, then port it. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, yes. Wait for the mic. Someone get that over to Ilanka. Uh-oh. No, I think it's on. Oh, just talk. Oh, no, I'll flip it. Sorry, I lied.
Finding the DLLs is really cool. But have you played with any of the utilities like Spybot S&D? Will it track down Spectre, or are there any of the others?
I haven't looked at that because I don't want to do, I'm not going to load this into soft ice. I mean, I don't want them to completely get pissed at me. I basically have tried to confine all of my stuff to, hey, how does this thing load? How does it hook it? And how can I kill it? I'm walking a pretty damn thin line if I'm actually looking how their program does, how it creates an SPT file when I'm also creating essentially a program that will also create and read SPT files. I mean, I've pretty much been able to figure out what they've been able to do by just looking at the SPT file. And so I'm not going to even touch their executables. Just because, it's way too gray area for me. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Ilanka, did you have another question? Okay. I think it's still on.
You may have covered this earlier. I missed the first part of your talk, but is it really hidden from the user? I mean, do you have full access?
No, you don't have any access at all. It's not only, even if Spectre is not running in stealth mode, it's still password protected. And again, there was no reason for me to try to crack the password because, I'm kind of drawing the line at here's their executable, and if I'm only screwing with the file format, they're a lot less likely to come after me.
So even if the computer's not protected in any other way, if you pull up the task manager, can you see the process running and just
you
kill
can't.
it?
It uses DLLs, it hooks Explorer,
right.
And then every other process that spawns, it hooks that too. So it's capturing your key events. It's capturing the repaint for the Windows, the GDI.
The GUI that you're showing, is that available to the admin on every box that Spectre's running on?
Yes. They do not have a remote client, as near as I can tell, which that's another great thing about mine. Not that I'm trying to say use this for it, but I mean, you could pull the SPT files and then run them locally. Right now, Spectre doesn't offer any way for you to take an SPT file and it offers basically no management. I mean, that's why I had to make XML files just so I could help keep track of them, because I've got 200 freaking SPT files, and I'm trying to keep track of what's with what. They really kind of missed the boat on trying to deploy this in any great extent and manage it. I mean, there should be, first of all, Spectre should be pushing these things to a server, or have some type of mechanism to push them. There should be some type of hierarchical filing system database on some type of server where you can manage these things, and there isn't. So that GUI is there. For Spectre, it's I should have said this earlier. It's Control-Shift-S will pop up a little window that says enter a password. Or if Spectre's running in non-stealth mode, you'll see that little square at the bottom. Double click on that; it'll prompt you for a password as well. And if anyone wants to play with this, I misquoted the price earlier. It's not $50. Spectre is actually $149 if you buy it online. It's $199 if you buy it retail. So they're making quite a killing off this. And there is Spectre 1.2 floating around, and there also is a serial number floating in alt.2600. And it's a complete coincidence that I happen to be using 1.2.2. No, seriously, I did go out and shell out the money, and I'm currently working with the latest version, at least as of June. You have
another one
questions?
still. I know that eBlaster, you can create a package, send it out as an executable to somebody, they run it, and it will report, send you emails, whatever you want,
Okay.
of what their activity is, and that Control Shift S function is not available on their box.
So that
Could you
very
have
much sounds almost like kind of a nice little fun message in a bottle like NetBus. I'll try to.
Is it possible that you could have Spectre on your box and you not be able to access it?
The latest version I have seen, I did not notice that feature, but like I said, I haven't really looked at it in depth. I bought it in June, and I looked at it for about a week before I just got distracted with school and research. The eBlaster, seeing as how it's more of kind of a light version, it would make sense you could almost so Spectre has a configuration menu where you can configure what screenshots, what resolution, what bit depth, how often, key logs, all that other stuff, what exactly you want to capture. So it sounds very much like you can kind of pre-configure and set up the configuration file ahead of time, send it as a nice little package to a user who runs it, and then it basically, I don't know whether it probably, I haven't messed with eBlaster, but since it's the same company, I imagine it's some type of small daemon that runs doing the same type of collection, and it's probably just packaging itself up, those SPT files, and just sending them. Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions? I see one over here. Okay, last question. Thank you, Dolomite. That guy right there. No.
Okay. So if this thing is hooking in through Explorer.exe, I don't know. I heard there's something about a black box for Windows, a window manager for Windows. Theoretically, if you could kill Explorer.exe and have a different window manager running in Windows, as to why you would do that, I don't know. But just say for theory's sake, would that kill Spectre?
Well, yeah. I mean, Spectre wouldn't. Spectre probably doesn't know what type of. Okay, if it's a window manager for Windows, it probably has to have some function compatibility. So, when Excel, calls the repaint, calls the move, calls the different GDI events, that it can respond. So it should be able to hook those same functions.
But is it looking for specifically Explorer.exe?
I have no idea. I imagine it's looking for Explorer.exe. If they were smart, they would have gone. I don't think they use config.ini for this anymore, but back in the day, even through Win98 and ME, you could specify a different shell other than Explorer.exe. I know people who did like car MP3 players and stuff who decided to use Windows would just change their shell to be Winamp, which would still bring up your mouse events. I still think, Explorer is two parts, right? You've got the kernel, but Explorer also kind of handles icon placement, it does everything. In addition to being a file manager / Internet Explorer / virus propagator. Okay. Thank you guys very much. I always love talking here at Phreaknic. Come yak.net/Acidus. I'm going to be here all the weekend, so come talk with me if you want to see some Magstripe stuff or you want to learn more about this. So thanks again.